Hey everyone, welcome to the investor.bet NRL round 20 betting trends preview. We've got a full round, 8 games, and in this video I'm going to preview each one of them. We're going to look at the betting history, who's been covering, have their games been going over or under the total, go through some of the stats for these teams, just give you an idea of how I'm approaching betting on these games, give you information that you can use to make the best betting decisions this weekend that result in profits. There'll also be a try scorer preview coming out later in the week as well. But before we run through all the games coming up this weekend, I just want to quickly recap what happened in round number 19. So we just had the 7 games last week with 3 sides being the Rabbitohs, Raiders, Seagulls all having buys, and every single game the favorite won the game. They also covered the spread in 6 of the 7 games, so that definitely closed the gap on the season ATS records. Now underdogs are only 76-64 against the spread. But the round started, the Sharks beating the Dolphins by 12 points. Knights led at halftime over the Storm, but the Storm dominated the second half to win by 18 points. Dragons, Roosters, really high scoring first half. They ended up getting to the 55 points. Roosters winning by 7. Cowboys, Bulldogs, low scoring. Bulldogs scoring 2 tries, just the 1 by the Cowboys up there in Townsville. Warriors 34-14 over the Tigers in New Zealand. Panthers 32-10 over the Eels, and then final game Broncos 26-14 over the Titans. The Cowboys were the only underdog to cover the spread on the weekend. Away teams won 5 of the 7 games. It's not often you see so many away teams be favorites in matches like we saw this weekend. Away teams were 4-3 against the spread this season, though. Home teams are 80-60 ATS, and 4 games went under, 3 went over. On the season, 76 games have gone under and only 64 games have gone over. Now we've gone through that, let's get into the first game, which is at Suncorp Stadium on Thursday night. Dolphins at home against the North Queensland Cowboys. The Dolphins start favourites here. They're $1.56, minus 4.5, and the total is 48.5. The away team has a really good record in this matchup. If you look at the last 5 results, the away team has won and covered all of them. The sides only met back in round 15, and the Dolphins won that game 58-4 as $1.52 favourites up in Townsville. The odds are basically the same this time around. Dolphins are slightly longer, potentially on the back of the Cowboys putting up decent performances against the Bulldogs and Storm over the past couple of weeks with just 4 and 6 point margins in those games. But for the Cowboys to go down to Brisbane and win this game, it's a long way back from what it was in round 15. Dolphins 10 tries to 1. They scored 4-1 tries in the first half. That was when the Cowboys got their only try to Murray Talagi, and that Dolphins also dealt with a sin bin in that first half. Jack Bostock got the first 2 tries of the game. He ended up with 4 tries total. There were 7 individual try scorers for the Dolphins, and they scored 6 unanswered tries in the second half. The stats for this game, 56% possession to the Dolphins. They completed slightly better, 78-74. An extra 850 run meters, 2,260 to just 14-15. Post contact was exactly 200 difference, then 11-2 line breaks. The average set distance 49-40. Kick return meters just a 51 by the Cowboys, really poor number. And also the Cowboys missed 39 tackles in this game, with the Dolphins only missing 16, 20-4 offloads as well. Dolphins making slightly more errors, 14-12. Penalties were even. The Cowboys conceded 5 set restarts, whereas the Dolphins only conceded 3. Coming into this game, I think the Dolphins, they lost to the Sharks last week, but they're back at home here. And I spoke about in the preview for that Dolphins-Sharks game that the Dolphins may have had a little bit of an eye on this game coming up, and with it being at home Thursday night, primetime game against a rival opponent, I think they can get back on track and win this game. They were without Cody Nikorima and also Tabuai Fido in that game against the Sharks. And the Sharks did score 2 late tries in the final 5 minutes to push that margin out to the 12 points. It was only 14-12 with just over 5 minutes to go. And the Dolphins did have an opportunity where they were nearly able to score, but it is knocked on from the kick in the in-goal. Dolphins, expect them to win this game. I think there's just too much to overcome in recent history for the Cowboys. Dolphins are 4-3 at Suncorp this season. They've scored 50 and 56 points in their last 2 games there. They were against the Rabbitohs and the Dragons. And also, in terms of the total for this game at 48.5, the Dolphins, their last 7 games, when they've won, so there's been 4 occasions in their last 7 where they've won. All 4 of those have gone over. They've lost 3 games. All 3 of them have gone under the total. So if you think Dolphins are going to win, that pairs nicely with the over. Cowboys, they've lost 5 of their last 6 games, including the 2 in a row. As I said, they were competitive against the Bulldogs and Storm. The last 11 games, they've only had 3 wins, 2 of those being against the Titans and the other one against the Tigers. Really not ideal form coming into a matchup against a team that's beaten you on the last 2 occasions and also by 54 points just over a month ago. The Cowboys trends also back up the over. 8 of their last 11 games have gone over. So like the Dolphins to win and like it to be high scoring. First game on Friday night is the Sharks against the Roosters. Our favorites $1.65 minus 3.5 and the total is 46.5. Back-to-back games at home here for Cronulla against an opponent that beat them back in round 12, 42-16. Roosters have now won 9 of the past 11 versus the Sharks, but the Sharks have covered the past 3 at home versus the Roosters. Looking back at this game at Gosford in round 12, the Roosters started really quick. They scored 2 tries, both through Daniel Tupou in the first 10 minutes. Cam McInnes got one back in the 14th minute. Another try for the Roosters in the 24th minute. They led 20-6 at halftime. Weren't able to capitalize whilst Ronaldo Mulitalo was sin-binned. And then in the second half, it was the first 2 tries there by the Roosters that pushed the margin right out. They're both converted, so that went out to 32-6. The Sharks got a couple of tries and then 2 more late tries through Tedesco and Young pushed the margin right out to 26 points in the final 4 minutes. 50-50 possession. Sharks completed slightly better, 80-75. Runs and meters gained were both fairly even, not a great differential. Just the 2 more line breaks for the Roosters. Tackle breaks, missed tackles, both fairly even, set distances. All the stats for this game are all very even, slightly more offloads for the Roosters, but nothing major. Errors 13-11 by the Roosters. Penalties, Sharks led the penalty count 8-7. They also led the set restart count 3-1. Now, these stats should suggest that this game and the final score should have been a lot closer. But when I went back, looked at this game, the lead into it, it was definitely a potential letdown spot for the Sharks. They beat the Storm the week prior, that 31-25 game. And then they were having their first bye of the season following this trip up to Gosford. And the Roosters, on the other hand, they were off a close loss against the Bulldogs in a game that they led 14-0 at halftime and ended up losing 24-20. So blowing a double-digit lead and wanting to atone for that contributed to their really fast start here. And the Sharks were just off their game from basically the kickoff. So I'm happy to, excuse that performance there by the Sharks in that game. Happy with them being favourites here. I think they'll win at home against the Roosters side, who's coming off the win against the Dragons. It wasn't really that convincing the week prior. They lost to the Tigers on Sunday, off to a slow start there. They have won 3 of their past 4. But I just think the Sharks, potentially that game against the Dolphins, will have given them confidence to go into this game, particularly if the Dolphins come out and win comfortably against the Cowboys. That'll strengthen the play on the Sharks. For the total for this game at 46.5, the last 2 Sharks games have both gone under the total, and they're against the top 2 attacking teams in the Dolphins and Storm. Roosters, on the other hand, they've had 3 straight overs and 8 of their last 10 games have gone over. These sides both rank in the top 7 in terms of attack and in the bottom half of the league defensively. That suggests we should see overs here. 6 of the past 8 head-to-head have gone over. There was 58 points in the game early this season. I think we'll see points. Can't really see the final score being too much under the 46 number. If it doesn't go over, it should definitely go close to it. So maybe a bit of a nail biter on the under. Leaning towards the over, backing these teams in to find some attacking firepower. Sharks games, though, it does tend to look like they are really trying to rely on their defense to win games. The Sharks definitely did well keeping the Dolphins to just the 2 tries last week, and they were scoreless for a long part of that game, with those 2 tries coming late and basically successive. But against the Roosters should find points here. They've scored 24 or more in 5 of their last 6 games. And we know they're a strong attacking side that generally get to that 20 mark. So I think, leaning towards the over in the Sharks-Roosters matchup. And then later on, we have the Panthers versus Penrith. Opened $1.23, minus 12.5. And I have had a quick scroll through the lineups before recording this. Haven't done a full deep dive yet. But Isaiah Yeo and Nathan Cleary are both out for Penrith. So these odds will definitely have changed. Panthers, though, have won 7 of the past 9 versus the Rabbitohs and covered in 6 of those 7 wins. Panthers have also won 8 of the past 9 home games against the Rabbitohs, including 5 in a row. Last time they met was round 4 this season, back earlier this year, and the Rabbitohs won 28-18. That was the game they jumped out to a 28-0 lead at halftime, scoring 5 tries to none in the first half. Panthers ran in 3 tries, kept the Rabbitohs scoreless in the second half, but by that point, the game was basically all over. It's very hard to overcome a 28-point margin. Rabbitohs had 54% possession. They completed at 82%. The Panthers at just 69%. Rabbitohs slightly more of the ball. However, they were minus 150 in meters gained. Did have 6 to 5 line breaks as well. So this is a little bit concerning. Generally, if you have more runs, you should generate more meters, particularly if you also have more line breaks. Tackle breaks, both fairly even. 16 to 4 offloads in favor of the Panthers. Penrith also made 16 errors, which was costly in this game, particularly when you lose the penalty count 6 to 2 as well. Penrith, in their favor, did have 6 set restarts to 2, and just the 1 sin bin for South Sydney, which came in the 78th minute. Panthers scored 1 of their tries during that period. For this game, I do think Penrith will win. It is potentially a bit of a danger game, but they've definitely turned a corner. They've won 5 in a row. The concern with Penrith is they are on a 5-day turnaround, playing against a team that's coming off the bye. They did it earlier this season on following Origin 2, where they were over in New Zealand, played the Warriors, and then backed up off of that to beat the Bulldogs. They've covered 3 straight, playing very well, deserving to be favourites. Rabbitohs, on the other hand, definitely struggling. They've lost 6 in a row, and they've only won 2 of their last 12 games. Those wins against the Broncos and Tigers. At the end of the day, this is a game Penrith can't afford to drop. The lineups worry me a little bit, but they should be too good. Once Cleary got on the field against the Eels last week, Penrith definitely looked at their best and ended up winning that game by 22 points. Following this, they have the Tigers, Titans, and Knights. 3 very easy games based on where those teams are on the ladder, and I can understand why they're probably looking at this game as potentially there's not as much on the line for them. The concern obviously is Rabbitohs would somewhat be treating this as a bit of a grand final match, considering where they're sitting on the ladder. This is the ladder right now. Rabbitohs all the way down in 16th, and you just have to be a little bit cautious of these teams down the bottom of the ladder, treating these games as grand finals for them. However, Penrith should realistically get the job done at the end of the day and win. The total is 46.5. 5 of the past 8 head-to-head have gone over, though the past 2 have gone under. It's not really a strong trend. 5 of the last 6 Penrith games have all gone under, whereas the Rabbitohs, 4 of their past 6 have gone over. The issue is the Rabbitohs defense. They are conceding 24 plus points in virtually every game. They've done that in each of these last 6 losses. And I've spoken about in other videos, 24 points is the threshold. If you get to 24 points, you beat the Rabbitohs this season. There's going to be 1 game that they've won where the opponent scored 24 points, and that was back in round 2 against the Dragons. Every other game, the opponent got 24 points. They've lost that matchup. That's the key number here for Penrith at 46.5. I'd lean slightly towards the under. The Rabbitohs only score down their left-hand side of the field. Penrith will know this. They'll look to adjust their defense based off of this. And if they, teams that are so one-dimensional, the good teams and good defensive teams can shut it down. Not that Penrith have been a great defensive team this season, I think this is a game that they can lock down the Rabbitohs, keep them to a somewhat low score. I can't really see the Rabbitohs scoring over 18 points here. They scored against the Dolphins and Storm recently, but majority of their other games, 12, 18 points, which is what I'm expecting from them against Penrith. Raiders versus Eels. The Raiders off the bye, $1.25 favourites. And they've won 7 in a row, so they're minus 12.5 here, and the total is 47.5. Raiders have won and covered the past 3 versus Eels. They've also won 8 of the past 10 at home against Parramatta. All 8 wins have been by at least 8 points with an average margin of 15.6. They met earlier this season, round 6 at TIO Stadium, and the Raiders won that game 50-12. They scored 8 tries to 2. And Raiders, they scored 4 tries in the first half, 4 in the second. Parramatta got 1 try in the first, 1 in the second. But ultimately, it was a dominant win by Canberra. They had 56% possession, completed at 88% compared to 66% by Parramatta. Those completion rates to the fact they had 8 additional sets. You can really see the dominance. Significantly more meters, 65 extra runs, only 136 runs for those 1,400 meters by the Eels. 715 post-contact meters, 8 to 3 line breaks. Eels missed 45 tackles. Canberra only missed 21. And you can understand why the Eels missed more tackles. They had to make 112 extra tackles, 16 errors to 8. It's no surprise, really, final scoreline for this game. Canberra also won the penalty count 7-4. So everything was kind of in their favor in this game. As I said, they're off the bye here. They've won 7 in a row and 12 of their past 13. 5 of their last 6 wins, though, have been by 6 or less points, including their last 3, which have all come by exactly 4 points. They've also failed to cover the spread in their last 3 in a row. With them off the bye, the Eels on the 6-day turnaround after the game against Penrith. Parramatta have also lost and failed to cover 4 off their past 5, and the only win was against the Titans at home. All 5 of those games, they started as an underdog. I really can't see them going out to Canberra and winning this game. If Canberra hold form through the bye, they win and win this comfortably. Touch concerning, like how they've been letting teams keep it close against them lately, but I really can't see the Eels doing that. I think this will be fairly convincing win by the Raiders here. The total is 47.5. We've got the number 3 attacking side in Canberra going up against the 15th ranked defensive side in the Eels, and the Eels ranked 15th in attack going against the 8th ranked Raiders defense. With the current total at 47.5, I think it's 1 point higher than it should be, so they pretty much have it spot on. Purely statistically, I'd be leaning towards the under. This matchup, though, has a history of being high scoring, with 4 of the past 5 head-to-head going over. The Eels, 3 of their last 4 games have gone over, so the trends are favoring the over. If we get a slightly lower number, then I could be interested in playing the over if we get down to 46.5, 45.5, but we rarely see a great deal of line movement in the totals. Bulldogs versus Dragons. The Dogs are $1.33 favourites, minus 9.5, and the total is 44.5. The Bulldogs have won and covered the past 4 versus St. George, and they've also won and covered 3 of the past 4 at home against the Dragons. Earlier this season, they met in round 1. Bulldogs winning as $1.67 favourites, 28 points to 20. That game, they scored 5 tries to 4 in the first half. They scored 3 of those 5 tries to lead 16-6. They got the first 2 tries of the second half, both through Tupanua, and then Dragons ran in 3 late tries to close the margin back to 8 points. But Bulldogs were always pretty much in control of this game. They had the 55% possession, completed slightly better at 74%, just a 68% rate for the Dragons, plus 22 extra runs and about 350 extra run meters for the Bulldogs. Line breaks were even at 6 all. Bulldogs missed slightly more tackles at 35-29. Dragons threw the ball around a bit at 14 offloads compared to just 6 by the Bulldogs, but majority of the attacking kicks all being done by Canterbury. 15 errors by the Dragons as well definitely makes it tough. They also won the penalty count 6-3. For this game, we expect the Bulldogs to be winning. I think they're just a little bit too good for the Dragons. They broke a 2-game losing streak when they beat the Cowboys last week. They are returning from Townsville, so it's not ideal. And their last 4 games have all been by 6 or less margins, both wins and losses. They've also failed to cover all 4, and all 4 of them have gone under. So low scoring games, small margins has been the Bulldogs' MO the past month. But they get a chance to turn that around here because the Dragons are conceding stacks of points. Their past few games, if we bring it up, they conceded 31 against the Roosters, 28 over the Raiders, 20 against the Eels, 30 against the Sharks, and 56 against the Dolphins. That's their last 5. Bulldogs get the opportunity here to get their attack rolling. They won't get many better opportunities than this to beat up on a side that's struggling defensively. And if they can do that, that'll give them confidence going forward. If they struggle to score in this game, then I'm very concerned about them going into finals. As much as their defense has been really good, their attack definitely needs to improve to be a genuine contender. Right now, they're only averaging 22.9 per game, which is about average. It's 8th ranking in the league, and not really that much better than the Dragons. But obviously, the difference between these two sides is the defense, which is heavily in favor of the Bulldogs. So for me, the key for this game is watching the Bulldogs, seeing how their attack functions. Expect them to win the game comfortably. 8 of the past 12 head-to-head have gone over. The total is 44.5. As I said, Bulldogs games have been going under their last 4 in a row. The Dragons have had 5 straight games go over the total. I think the Dragons will struggle to score. I can't see the Dragons running into 20 points. They got away with some early tries last week against the Roosters, who did the same thing the week prior against the Tigers. I think the Bulldogs are going to let that happen. Bulldogs, their defense has definitely improved a bit lately. They had that little run where they were giving up 20 plus each week in the few games where they gave up 40 plus. But their past 5 games have only given up over 18 points once, and it was against the Broncos who scored those 4 late tries. Really can't see the Dragons getting more than 3 tries in this game, and the total largely just comes down to if that Bulldogs attack is successful against this Dragons defense, which I see no reason why it won't be. Another home favourite here, we have the Storm against the Seagulls. Melbourne are $1.30, minus 9.5, and the total is 47.5. The Storm have won and covered 8 of the past 11 versus Seagulls, but the Seagulls have won and covered 3 of the past 5. So to get that last 11, I had to go back a little bit further, but Seagulls' record recently has been okay. All 3 of those wins, though, have all come at home. This time around, they're meeting at Amy Park. They haven't played there since round 17, 2023, and the Storm won that game 24-6. They met back in round 5 this season, and the Storm won that game 48-24. They scored double the tries, 8-4. All tries were converted, and then Manly got those couple of penalty goals as well. In the first half, the Storm led 18-10, but the damage was done from the 48th minute through to the 58th minute. 4 tries during that period, and all 4 of them being converted. They also got one in the 62nd minute, so you could make it that 14 minutes. They scored 5 tries, and then the Seagulls ran in 3 late tries, which put a bit more like respect on the overall margin of the game. But it was a dominant performance by Melbourne. 53% possession. They completed slightly better at 84%. An extra close to 200 meters gained, an extra 100 post contact. 18 total line breaks at 9 each. Very little defense by both of these sides in this game, which was in the afternoon back earlier this year. Both missing plenty of tackles. Storm slightly more errors. Manly only made the 11 errors. They didn't really give the Storm like good field position. Like sometimes when teams concede close to 50 points, it's because they made 15, 16 errors and handed the ball over right on their goal line, and then the other team goes in and scores. Other than that, it's a high number of penalties or sin bins that can contribute to this. So this is definitely worrying for Manly, the fact they conceded 48 home against Melbourne. I think Melbourne win this game comfortably. They've won 6 in a row. They've won 10 straight at home. 27 of their last 29 games have been wins at Amy Park. Last week, they trailed the Knights at halftime, which was only the second time this season they've been trailing at halftime, and were undermanned as they did rest quite a few players from the Origin team. They face the Seagulls, who get into this game off the bye, so they're somewhat well positioned here, and they've come into this on the back of 18-point wins versus the Rabbitohs and Tigers. It's obviously significantly harder than playing 2 teams in the bottom half of the ladder. But for the Seagulls, this next month really makes or breaks their season. They're in an interesting spot. They're right now 7th on the ladder, But the next month they'll play the Storm, which obviously here away. Then they're away against the Bulldogs, home against the Roosters, and then away against the Raiders. They really need to pick up 2 wins across these 4 games. I don't think this is going to be one of them. I think the Storm just too hard to beat. Like, you have to play basically perfect to beat them down in Melbourne. And the Seagulls just still ironing things out there. They're able to beat up on the bad teams at home, but playing the Storm on the road, I think, is just a little bit of a bridge too far for them right now. Like the Storm to win, probably won't lay 9.5 points. I think that's a little bit too much, but I expect Storm to get the win. The total is 47.5. 10 of the past 14 head-to-head have gone under. Melbourne basically got the over themselves in the game, which was 49.5 earlier this season. Seagulls, 10 of their last 11 games have gone under the total. So they've been a really big under team late this season. They're strong defensively. The total for this game, I think, is spot on. I had a projection of 48 for this game. So I'm not really interested in the total right now. Both these teams statistically are really good. Storm obviously number 1 attack, number 2 defense. But the Seagulls number 6 attack, number 5 defense. And they're also the number 1 first half defense. So Storm will have to be on here. Just think they'll be good enough to win the game across the 80 minutes. The Seagulls won't be able to maintain a full 80-minute performance. But it is a slight danger game, particularly when you look at the recent history between the two teams, with the Seagulls winning 3 of those last 5 games. But yeah, Storm to get over the line, probably at 1-12 margin is how I think this game will play out. The first game on Sunday is the Tigers versus Titans. Not really a game to get all that excited with. Tigers returning from New Zealand on Sunday, and the Titans played at home on Sunday night. So both equal turnarounds. The West Tigers are $1.52 favourites, just under a converted try at -5.5, and the total is 47.5. The Titans have a really good record against the West Tigers. They've won 5 of the past 6. They've also won and covered 7 of the past 9 away games against the Tigers. And this matchup also has a history of being close. 5 of the past 6 had been decided by 12 or less. With the matchup last season being decided by 8 and the Tigers winning at home, I'm definitely interested in the try bet here, either team to win by 12. Do agree Tigers to be favourites here, just off the way the Titans have been playing, and West being at home. The matchup last season, 18-10, 3 tries to 2. The Titans scored 2 tries to 1 in the first half, so they led 10-6 at halftime. The Tigers got the only 2 tries of the second half, both converted, and they're able to win the game by 8 points, keeping Gold Coast scoreless. Possession fairly even, 51% in favour of the Tigers. They completed significantly better, 83% compared to 67%. Run meters in favour of the Titans, and also post contact. They also made 9 line breaks to 2. So to lose this game and make 9 line breaks and 47 tackle breaks, definitely disappointing. Offloads were even. Missed tackles, 47 of them made by the West Tigers, and the Titans made 14 errors, which counteracted the 9 line breaks that they made. And Tigers won the penalty count 4-2. Leading into this game, the Tigers have lost 7 of their past 8. The only win against the Roosters a couple of weeks ago by 2 points. And as I said, returning from New Zealand, and they've covered the spread in 4 of their past 6, majority of the time as an underdog. Titans, they've lost 3 in a row and have trailed at halftime in 8 of their last 9 games. They've failed to cover their last 3. As you can see, everything really favors the Tigers to be winning this game. Statistically, there's not a great deal between the Gold Coast, averaging slightly more points per game, but are on the road here. And the Tigers, the better defense, as the Titans are the worst defense in the competition. I think the Tigers, in front of their home fans, can win, but I think it's going to be a 1-12 margin. They'll likely get over the line, but it should be close. The total is 47.5. The past 4 head-to-head have all gone under. Lately, the Tigers have had their last 2 games go over, and the Titans have had 3 of their last 5 go over. The number I have for this game is 46.5, so it is 1 point higher than I was expecting. Right now, I'm not super keen on the total, just due to the fact that the Titans' defense has been so poor. It was a lot better last week against the Broncos, but are they due for a bit of a letdown following that? Against the Broncos, they conceded 26 points. Prior to that, were giving up 28 plus in basically every game through most of the season, particularly as part of this losing streak they've been on. Both teams will see this as a game that they could win, but think the Tigers get over the line in a small margin And with the total, like, the more I look at this game, the more I think it's going to go either one of two ways. And it's either going to be super low scoring and a grind because the Titans defense is going to show up, or it'll be really free-flowing and a really high-scoring game because neither of these teams are that great defensively and have shown glimpses that they can score points. The other thing with this number, as where it currently stands, is the Titans generally score close to the 20 mark pretty much every week. Like, they've been consistent with that. Their average of the 20.4, which is 12th in the league, isn't due to them having huge scores and then really low scores, which we see for some teams. It's due to the fact they're consistently being at that around 20 mark. And so with that in mind, if they score 20 here against the Tigers, for the West to win this game, they're going to need to score over 20, which pushes you very close to what this current total is. So with that in mind, I'm probably leaning slightly more towards it being that higher scoring game, even though that goes against the past 4 matches between these sides over the past few seasons. But they haven't met this year, and the Tigers are obviously a very different team this year. And then the final game, Newcastle at home against the Warriors, who are favourites. They're $1.45 minus 6.5, and the total is 44.5. The home team has a really good record in this matchup, winning the past 6 in a row, and the Warriors have also won 3 of the past 4, with all those 3 wins being at home. Knights, though, have won the past 4 at home against the Warriors. That definitely favours the Knights here as pretty big underdogs, to be fair, close to the $3 mark. But the Warriors show that they potentially can overcome the losses of Barnett and Metcalf against these lower ranked sides. And the Knights, they've lost 2 in a row either side of the bye, but they've shown glimpses that they're playing better, particularly in attack, than they were earlier on in the season. And we already know they have a good defense. This will also be their 3rd straight home game and their 5th home game across their last 6. So they'll be desperate to get a win in front of their home fans. They've covered 4 of their last 5, and definitely agree the Warriors to be favourites. They beat the Knights by 14 earlier this season. At that game, they led 16-0 at halftime. This was, I think, the week where it was the sin bin-a-thon. There was 2 sin bins in this game, both in the first 4 minutes. The Warriors capitalised on that with 1 try during that period. Newcastle not scoring until the second half, but with the Warriors up 16-0 at halftime, and then also scoring 2 of the first 3 tries in the second half, it was just too much for the Knights to overcome. The stats for that game, slightly more possession for the Warriors. They completed better as well. Significantly more meters gained, 7-3 line breaks. Tackle breaks fairly even, not a great deal of difference between them. Errors, 15 errors made by the Knights and just 9 made by the Warriors. The errors back early in the season was a real strength of New Zealand, making very few per game, and the Knights really struggled. They were always around this 15 mark. Newcastle won the penalty count 6-3. They also won the set restarts 5-3. Still for a 14-point margin. With this game being at Newcastle, the home team having such a strong advantage, like, I do agree the Warriors should be favourites, but I don't think there's much value in the $1.45. Expect this game to be pretty close. The Knights, 4 of their last 5 games have been decided by 6 or less. The Warriors have had a lot of close games this season, particularly around that 6 or less margin as well. So I also like the try bet here. I think it could be a 1-try game either way. Just with that added motivation of being at home for the Knights. Following this, they don't really have many other easy games, particularly at home. Their final home games are against the Panthers and Broncos. This is potentially their last winnable home game if they can play at their absolute best. I just like the fact they're finding a bit more points now, and that can keep it close. But with them finding more points, their defense has dropped off a little bit. And I was definitely impressed by the Warriors last week against the Tigers, but I've seen them beating the Knights by 20 margin here. The total is 44.5. The Warriors, 4 of their last 5 games have gone over the total. And for Newcastle, they've been a pretty big underside all season. Only 3 games going over the number. I think this number is a little bit too high. I am surprised it is 2 points higher than the one earlier this season. I think this is due to the fact, like I mentioned before, the Knights are scoring a little bit more, and they're also conceding a little bit more at the moment, which is causing their games to be higher scoring, and the bookmakers are looking to adjust to that. But this matchup has a history of being low scoring, so lean towards the under at this 44.5 number. Newcastle really need to turn this into a more defensive game in order for them to be winning. And that's how I'm looking at betting on round 20 right now. Just my early look on these games. As I said, light-ups only came out few minutes before I started recording this. So once I go through those and dive into a bit more of the situational stats, which you can look at in the NRL Bet Finders through the link in the description. That's where you can go through and analyze team performance based on home games, away games. Like you can see here, their home game rankings, their attack rankings when they're at home, how many points they average in first half, second halves, their post-contact meters, see those differences, their defense, and then also in away games. This is all broken down into day and night, whether it's raining or when it's fine, how many rest days they've had coming in, if they won last week or lost last week against top 8 or bottom 9 opponents, and also on their recent form. Plus, you can also look at it for each team individually. So right here at the top, and then you can go through all the other teams as well, but you can compare their performances in attack and defense in the different situations, see where they perform better. If you can get those to line up in good situations, then it can create really good bets, but it allows you to actually use the NRL stats and break down these team performances. So definitely check it out through the link in the description. Thanks guys for watching. I'll see you in the Try Scorer preview coming up.